Hello and welcome back to A Drunk History of Middle-earth. This is a show where we take the legendarium created by J.R.R. Tolkien and have a good, simple, wholesome chat about it. Sometimes it's a drunk person, me, trying to explain stories or events, and sometimes it's breaking down the stories and concepts as if we're talking to a drunk person. I'm Chris, I'm an avid Tolkien nerd, I'm still learning and realising how much I actually don't know. And joining me is your co-host and my lovely wife Rebecca. Do you want to say hello?
Hello, I'm Rebecca, a complete novice to all things Tolkien and nerdy in general, although now I've watched all 3 films, extended editions, and can now confirm that I have been converted to the religion headed by L. Ron Tubbard.
Long may he live. Right.
Sultan.
That's the intro sorted. Let's get into today's episode. Hello, Becca. Welcome back to part 2 of the Fellowship of the Ring. I've got a tankard of lager. What drink have you got this week?
I've got a nice cup of tea.
Yeah. Got a bit drunk last week, didn't we? It's quite drunk.
Can't remember.
No. So at the end of, I was listening back to the episode at the end of last week, and I was like, it's really just me talking right at the end. And that's because I thought you'd went to the toilet or something, or just went to do something, and you'd just got up with not a word and went and got into bed and was asleep.
So that wasn't just good editing.
No, it wasn't good editing, no. So that was the next thing as well is, we both woke up with stinking hangovers, which hurt so much more when you're a parent. Yeah, Goodness me.
I didn't appreciate that 4 o'clock wake up.
Yeah, I can imagine. You got up with the baby. Yeah, I remember just seeing you on Saturday and you just looked like you wanted to die. Because I was doing something that day, so I had the sleep in, because we take it in turns to get up with the baby, and unfortunately that Saturday was Becca's turn to get up.
Yeah, I think I've gone completely sober now for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I didn't even drink that much, but I feel like that's what's going to happen. I'm going to go sober.
Throughout the week, what was it, Wednesday night? Thursday? No, it was Wednesday night. We watched part 2 again of Fellowship.
Yeah, which took me a while to realise it was part 2 again.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you
didn't tell me that it was part 2.
No, I didn't, because I thought, well, we're doing part 2 of Fellowship. We're doing disc 2 of the extended edition for this episode. So this episode is Fellowship of the Ring part 2, which falls in line with the second disc of the extended edition, right? We got about 10 minutes into the rewatch, and then you asked them, what did you ask? It was, when are they going to start moving the story on? Because they're just
recapping?
They're recapping the last bit really well.
No, I just thought, like, this is maybe some sort of technique that the directors decided to use to recap what had happened in the first film. And then I started to kind of realise that it was identical.
There is, right, so...
And then I thought, yeah. Wow, my memory's better than I thought it was, because I can remember all this.
There is some, really bad films that do that they have large bits of the previous film in them just to pad it out. I think there's, a Christmas horror film called, Silent Night, Deadly Night or something like that. And it's really low budget and really bad, but they do that on there. I don't think Peter Jackson needed to, with the budget and the scope of the story they had to tell.
Anyway, I found out that it was actually...
Yeah, we were watching Fellowship.
Rewatching part 2.
So that was the second time. We'll just jump straight into it, right? I mean, so we might cover a couple of things we might have left out of the last episode. The big difference was this time when we were watching it, I was making notes, and a lot of notes go into... A lot of notes have been written down in order to make this episode. And there's still stuff we're going to miss out, just by design. Going to try and edit this episode a little bit better, but what we're going to do, I think, going forward is we're going to leave in the raw bits of us just shooting the shit and just, just talking to each other. I'm going to edit out the things like a bit of dead air. You might hear a dog snore in the background maybe, or you might hear someone's phone buzzing. I'll try and get rid of those kinds of things, but this isn't a professional podcast. We're not professional people, in the sense that everything needs to be clean and tidy. We're very much about showing the nitty gritty, aren't we? We'll show everything. We don't just show the highlights. We'll just show everything that goes into it. Yeah, as I picked Becca's phone up to look at my notes, because I'm recording it on my phone, I dropped the charger into a tankard of beer. So,
and that's not him.
Yeah, that could be interesting.
That's not him just sort of making up that he's drinking from a tankard.
No, I am. I wish, almost wish we were doing a video podcast. So
I don't right now.
Well, yeah, no. But when I went down to Nottingham in December, I went to Warhammer World. That was the whole point of me going. And I went to Bugman's tavern, and then on the shop on the way out, I paid about 30-40 quid for a leather tankard, and then proceeded to take it out that night round pubs, and it was very well received. So I'm drinking. What am I drinking? Carlsberg? Yeah, I'm drinking Carlsberg this week instead of whiskey because I'm going on a very long hike tomorrow with our child strapped to my back. So that'll be fun because I'm doing that Conqueror challenge still. But enough about that. Shall we jump into the film?
Mm-hmm.
So, what were your thoughts overall on the second part of Fellowship of the Ring after watching it again? So you have a good concept of what's going on now. What were your thoughts compared to the first half, and what were your thoughts overall?
So I enjoyed the elves part.
Galadriel?
Yeah, is that the actual place?
No, Lothlorien is the place. There's two elven places mainly in the second half. There's Rivendell where they start, where Elrond is.
Yeah.
And then there's Lothlorien where they go after the Mines of Moria.
So I enjoyed that bit anyway, and the gifts.
Oh, yeah.
It felt really fast though, as if there was a lot of bits that were missing. But I suppose that's the limitations of a film. But definitely would say watching it again took more in. Revisited elements where actually I still agreed with myself from watching it the first time. Like Gandalf being cocky and getting whipped down that black wall.
Oh, yeah. The Balrog scored a nat 20 on that hit, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, he got him. Oh, fair enough. So yeah, the film opens in Rivendell. The Rivendell's interesting as well. So I was looking into Rivendell because I always knew it was called Imladris, but it's also got a couple of other names as well. And I was looking into the history of it, and I found it quite interesting. So it's where Elrond lives. And he's like the leader of the elves there, and he's with like his wife and his daughter. Oh, actually, has his wife departed by this point? I think his wife might have already went to Valinor, which I explained where the elves go when they fancy it.
So did she just get sick of him and was like, yeah, I'm off?
I can't remember. At some point, I think she just can't bear it anymore, and she's just like, peace, I'm out. I'd need to look that up, actually. It's something I didn't think about. Rivendell, or Imladris, started essentially as like a military outpost kind of thing for the elves during like the first and second age. Oh, I think it might be the first age, but it started basically as like just as a staging post, like somewhere you go to rest on your way to somewhere else. And then over time, because the elves of Lindon. So when the elves first came to Middle Earth, and then when Beleriand was sunk, do you know that continent I said was like the northwest? There used to be a whole continent there. So once that was sank, the elves all came to like Eregion, which is kind of where the Shire is, and they were called like the Elves of Lindon. So it was like Galadriel, Elrond, and Círdan the Shipwright, amongst others, and Celeborn, which is Galadriel's husband. It's where they kind of they were in Lindon before they all started to go their separate ways, and once they left there, Rivendell became like a sort of outpost that just grew over time. Like, do you know, in England we have a lot of those villages that grow into towns that grow into cities kind of thing. It's a bit like that. Like, it starts as just something small and then just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Imladris was that. And depending on the direction you're going, travellers are going, Rivendell is either called the last homely house you see or the first homely house you see. So I think if you're going west to east, so if you're going from, like, let's say the Shire area, like you're going from the sea, if you get a Rivendell and you're heading east towards, like, the Lonely Mountain or, like, Mirkwood and that. It
gets worse.
Yeah, exactly. So the elves say Rivendell is the last homely house you'll see before you get to the ugly things. But if you're coming back the other way, if you're coming, let's say you're coming from Mirkwood or the Lonely Mountain or whatever.
Like a relief.
Yeah, you're like, oh, thank God I can see Rivendell, finally. Some good fucking food. Like, you know, like, it's the first good place you'll see. Because then as you go further on, you start to see, you know, like more, there would be like more elven things and better looking stuff. So it's interesting little bit of history that it's called either the last homely house or the first homely house, depending which way the travellers are coming, which I thought was quite cool. So we're at Rivendell, and in the extended version we see Aragorn is at the grave or the memorial to his mother, and she was the one who brought him to Rivendell when he was about, I want to say 10. He's no older than 20 when he first met. Yes. So I think he was 10 when he first got brought to Rivendell. And then I think he was 20 or thereabouts when he first met Arwen, because Arwen was still in Lothlorien at the time. So elves take holidays, but their holidays can be like fucking hundreds of years. Because Galadriel is Arwen's grandmother, right? She's Elrond's mother-in-law. So Arwen, who goes on to become Aragorn's like love, she was like, I'm going to stay with Nana for a bit. See you later. I'm off to see Grandma. And she was there for a couple of 100 years, just chilling. And when she came back to Rivendell, Aragorn was there. His mother had died, and, you know, she'd left him at Rivendell under the protection of Elrond. And the first time Aragorn saw Arwen, he called out to her, Tenuviel, Tenuviel, which, do you remember last week I mentioned a couple of people called Beren and Luthien?
Yeah.
They are a elf woman and a human man who fell in love. And those stories in Tolkien pretty much always end in heartbreak. Interspecies romance, like interrace romance or interspecies romance, never tends to really pan out well, especially with elves and men because of the differences in lifespan and what have you. But Luthien was allegedly the most beautiful woman to have ever lived out of any of the races. And so Aragorn, calling Arwen Tenuviel, is essentially saying, like, are you Luthien again? You know, are you the most beautiful woman to have ever lived? Are you her again? And I think she's actually, like, she's Arwen's...
That's like a massive compliment.
Yeah, it's a big fucking... You know, it'd be like it was 1994 and you're walking down the street and I shout, oh my God, it's Posh Spice.
Oh, Lord.
You know, like, you've got your Kappa tracksuit on. You've got your Kappa tracksuit on and you've got your crop top and I just run after you and I'm trying to talk to you and I say, are you Posh Spice?
Out of all the Spice Girls, honestly.
Well, the only other one was Mel B and you're not...
No,
you're not like,
Baby.
You're not
it
black.
Has to be Baby Spice.
Is that Jerry Halliwell? No, she was Sporty Spice.
No, Emma.
Emma Bunton?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, basically, it's like that. He's basically saying, you're so beautiful, are you this woman of legend? So yeah, that basically, so that's how I think about their ages. But obviously at the time, Arwen was like, I'm about 3,000 years old. I was
going to say proper cougar.
Yeah, she is. She's like 3,000 years old. So she's a bit like, Elrond's like, fuck no, don't think so. At one point, Elrond says to Aragorn, like, you can only have my daughter's hand when you become king of Gondor or something along those lines. Because it all ties back that Aragorn's mother left Aragorn there because Aragorn is the heir of Isildur, which you hear a lot in the films. He's the heir to the broken line of kings. So Aragorn and his dad Arathorn and the bloodline basically went a bit AWOL. The bloodline was broken. And the kings of Gondor, Gondor is now ruled by stewards who are to hold the place for the king. And Aragorn needed to be protected before he came of age because it was foretold that he'd be the one who pulls together the kingdom again. Because there's two kingdoms. We always talk about Gondor, which is the south, but there's the north kingdom, which is called Arnor. Arnor and Gondor are two halves of one whole, essentially. And Aragorn is the lost heir of a race of men called the Númenóreans. And the Númenóreans were island people who they basically fucked around and found out with God. They were given the island of Númenor and they were ridiculously advanced in the second age of men. At the end of the first age, race of men, certain men, had helped elves in the wars against Morgoth. And to reward them, an island was raised out of the sea by God, or it might have been one of the Valar, but I think it was Eru Ilúvatar, God. And they were given a whole nation to live on, and the only stipulations were, don't come to Valinor. You can go east as much as you want, do whatever you want in Middle-earth, but don't come west to Valinor, which is where the elves and the gods live, or the archangels, as we discussed like last week. And for a long, long time during the Second Age, that was fine. But there's something called the downfall of Númenor, the corruption of Númenor, which predictably involves Sauron being a sneaky little bumhole. And because of that, the men became decadent, and before that whole island was destroyed by God himself, a few called the Faithful left Númenor and came to Middle-earth. And over time, things happened, history happens. Like I said, it's a world in decline. Now we're in the Third Age, where all that line has been broken, it's forgotten about, it's just stories, and Aragorn is the last of that line. He's the last hope for these kingdoms. So yeah, that's Númenor. But again, like it's almost criminal, because when I make these notes and when I talk to you about these things and when we talk about like Lord of the Rings and all that, you've got to leave out far more than you put in. So even though this podcast is for people who might have watched the films and want to know a bit more, or people who are trying to introduce people to it, whatever I say is never going to be enough, because there's literally decades of writing for all of this stuff. Yeah, does that help fill out a bit more of Aragorn and who he is?
Yeah, definitely, but the names.
Yeah, so you've got Aragorn, son of Arathorn, Arwen, like daughter of Elrond.
All the alliteration. I understand some of them.
Yeah.
And can remember some of them. There's just so many names.
Well, Elrond had a brother called Elros, and they're the ones who chose whether they were elves or would be elves or they would be men. Elros chose to be a man, Elrond chose to be an elf, and
Whenever
Elros was the first king of Numenor.
Whenever I hear Elrond, I always think of Elron Hubbard.
Elrond Hubbard. Yeah, he started the Church of Elf Scientology.
Yeah, it's just what a name.
Yeah, do you know what? I'm
Hubbard.
never going to be able to unsee that. If we did merchandise, I would love someone to do a poster for us of Elrond Hubbard. Come and join the
Take
river.
people into a little cinema.
Yeah. Oh god. Yeah, that happened to us in LA, didn't it? We got kowtowed into a Scientology building.
Like willingly, though, I think.
Kind of. Yeah. It was a bit of like morbid curiosity because you hear so much about them, but they weren't prepared to have like quite willful British people. Because as soon as we came out, I grabbed your hand, didn't I? And I was like, right, we're going. This is bullshit.
Not buying your book.
Yeah, get the fuck. I'm not doing your stupid little fucking love.
I'll get it from the charity shop when I'm back home.
I'm not doing your little love quiz tests where I've got to hold the handles and it says hot or not. But yeah, so that's Aragorn. Again, we could do a whole episode on each of these characters. We could do a 2-hour episode, and at the end, you'd still feel like you'd only just scratched the surface. But we move on for a bit. So we've got that lovely bit where Aragorn basically is you explain that his mum dropped him off here. He learns a shitload about the elves and what have you. And he's got an elven name, which is Elisar, which is a name he adopts later when he becomes, spoiler alert, he becomes a king. Elisar means elf stone.
Well, that's really disappointed me because I didn't know that he was going to become a king, so that's just ruined everything.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chris.
I'd feel like it was worse if one of the films wasn't called...
I wasn't expecting him to become king.
So the third film in the trilogy, Return of the King, who did you think that was about? Like,
I thought it was going to be like Return of the Jedi.
Yeah. Samwise comes home to Return of the King.
I mean, I wouldn't be upset if he was the king.
Sam. Yeah, Sam actually does become mayor. He becomes mayor of the Shire.
Yeah.
And he serves, I think he has 7 terms of 7 years, so he's a mayor for a lot, like 49 years or so. Wait, 7 times 7?
Quick maths.
Yeah, I think it's 7. Yeah, it's 7 times 7. But yeah, so that's all to come though, because when we get to Return of the King, we'll cover the film. But then I think there might need to be like a little extra episode at the end or the next week after that where we cover the endings because
Where did they end up?
Well, yeah, where are they now?
Yeah.
Most of them are dead.
Reunion.
Most of them is just now dead. But yeah, it's, so
cheerful. Yeah,
but this was in the third. So if so some people believe that Tolkien, was writing about our long history, long ago of our world. And if Lord of the Rings is in the Third Age, we are now roughly in like the Seventh Age.
Okay.
So it could, it could be our like long history, essentially. But moving on from Aragorn, we go a little bit smaller and we see Frodo and Bilbo.
Sorry, it sounds really funny.
So Frodo and Bilbo talking. Now I think they did Bilbo a little bit dirty in the films. Which we'll talk about in a minute. You see Bilbo handing over Sting to Frodo, and he gives him his mithril coat, which, as a little Luke Goblin, I'm sure you loved seeing it, how shiny it was.
Yeah, I really wanted it.
Yeah, it comes in handy later as well, doesn't it, in the mines? But yeah, what did you think of that scene where they were talking together and then Bilbo sees the ring again?
It made, so you would think that Bilbo being away from the ring... having his little retirement, he would kind of gain back a bit of strength, like mentally, because he's got the distance from the ring. But it makes him seem quite weak when he's like...
Yeah, we have scary Bilbo moment. But is weak the right word? I mean, like...
But then bless him when he gets upset.
He held the ring for 60 years.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, well, if you've had a little chill...
Yeah,
Bilbo, like you know.
And I was watching. There's a YouTuber. I think it was Nerd of the Rings. There's a channel called Nerd of the Rings, and it was a video about when did Gandalf know that Bilbo had the one ring. And one part of it that really stuck out to me was that he said, and he made a point that because Bilbo, do you know in The Hobbit when he first gets the ring? And he has it on and he's invisible and he has his sword up ready to kill Gollum, but then doesn't. And then when he gives up the ring in Fellowship of the Ring, he gives it up voluntarily, which we discussed last week, but very difficult to give it up because he turns his hand, right?
Yeah.
Nerd of the Rings makes a point, and there's some evidence in the books to it as well, that Bilbo got off lighter than most because he began and ended his ownership of the ring through pity, through like peaceful manners almost.
Yeah.
So he didn't kill to get it,
He
and he wasn't
made a legacy plan.
kind of, yeah. So like he was protected more than others, and he was able to hold it more than others because he started it through an act of pity, like a good act.
Yeah.
And he ended it voluntarily, so he got off like a little more lightly. But again, this goes back to how corruptive is that a word? How corrupting the ring is, that Bilbo doesn't understand at this point. I don't think Bilbo fully understands what it is. And that's where I think they're doing dirty, because at the end of the first disc, what we watched last week, you know, where they have that secret council, and Gimli's like, Aragorn's like, you have my sword, and Legolas says, you have my bow, and Gimli says, you have my axe, blah, blah, blah. Interestingly, I'm pointed out to you, in the films, that's the only time Legolas and Frodo speak to each other. It's the only time Legolas speaks to Frodo and says, you have my bow, and then they just never fucking speak again. But in the books, Bilbo is at that council, and in the books, Bilbo stands up and says, right, well, I see what you're saying, I've mucked up, I'll do it. And it's just kind of like Bilbo is like a foregone conclusion. And in his mind, he's like, do you know what? I've messed this up, so I'll go and destroy it. And he's just, at this point, he's like 120 or something, or coming up to 100. I think he's 130. He's just about to beat the old Tuck in terms of age. And they don't show that in the film, but I think it speaks incredibly to like the strength of hobbits, that Bilbo in the book, he was like, it's just a foregone conclusion, like, I've messed up. He thinks he's messed up. I'll fix it. And he offers to go and destroy the ring, which is really, like, I think it's heartwarming. But in the films, we just get scary Bilbo, and then, like you say, he gets really upset, because he's a really, really old man. And now he's not with the ring. It is aging him. Like, he's aging as he should. And, you know, like when he was saying in the first bit, where in the first half of the film, that I feel thin, like butter scraped over too much bread. Like, and that's the point as well. Is it's a
But you could feel the ring was like giving him up as well, like giving up on him.
Kind of, because the ring just wants to be found. So I don't suppose it'd be particularly calling out to him in Rivendell, because Rivendell's like quite a nice place, and if Bilbo's not going anywhere, the ring has no chance of being found.
No, but what I mean is, so it says in the first film that the ring betrayed Gollum.
Yes, because Gollum was just holding it in the Misty Mountains for 500 years.
So then, like Bilbo found it.
Yep.
So then him saying that he's feeling frail and that, is that not the ring being like impatient, like, for God's sake, give me to someone else. You're boring. Sick of being in the Shire.
No, it's just that
it starts to let him age.
Yeah, well, he wasn't aging too much while he had the ring, but he was feeling thin, like he was diminishing. So in Lord of the Rings, in Tolkien, there's a concept of something called a Fëa, which is like, it's your spirit, it's your essence. And because my personal theory is, because the ring is such a powerful tool of Sauron, who poured so much of his Fëa, his being, into that ring, that Bilbo is being diminished just by having it. That he's been withered away, just like how Gollum. So he started the process essentially of going into what Gollum was. You know, Gollum once was a hobbit, pretty much, and now he's this
not aged, but he's withered.
He's wretched. He's withered. He's just awful. But yeah, my cat. I've just wrote here like, poor Bilbo. Then Elrond sets the Fellowship off on their quest. Now, this is another thing I wanted to talk about. Is Elrond Hubbard. Elrond Hubbard says to the Fellowship, like, you're held to no oaths other than to go as far as you wish. Basically, like, nobody's asking you to go further than you want to. And one thing I wanted to ask you is, did you notice that line, or did you think anything of it? Or are you only, like, when I'm bringing it up now, is it the first time you're thinking, why is he talking about it?
Because, yeah, I didn't notice that.
So oaths in Middle-earth, it's really interesting because oaths have power. So if you swear on something in Middle-earth, like, even if it is our world, it's still our world at a point where there was magic in it. If you swear on something, you invoke, like, a power, and oaths made in the name of Eru Ilúvatar are the most powerful of all. So we'll see in Return of the King is the film, where it comes up, there are some ghost warriors, essentially. They swore an oath to the King of Gondor that they would help him in his time of need, and they never filled it. They ran into the mountains, and because they'd swore an oath on the name of Eru Ilúvatar, they were cursed to never be able to rest until they fulfilled that oath. And another, not perhaps more well known, but a more significant one, is the Sons of Feanor. And the Sons of Feanor made an oath in the first age of the world, or just before it, that they would hold all three Silmarils that Feanor made. And the Silmarils are, so if you imagine the One Ring on crack, the Silmarils were the three most beautiful gems ever created. They captured the light of the two trees that used to light up the world before the sun and the moon existed. And Morgoth, who we discussed last week, Sauron's boss, he stole them. And they inspired. So if you think the One Ring inspires like jealousy and what have you, it's got nothing on the Silmarils. And the Silmarils were at the time they were like a creation of good. But Feanor, who created them, was known as the greatest craftsman who have ever lived. Second in place might actually be Celebrimbor, the one who forged the rings. If you don't count the Maiar like Saruman. Saruman wants to be, but Sauron and Aule, the Valar of smithing itself. But the Sons of Feanor swore that they would hold all the Silmarils, all three of them, and that they would make war against anybody who held them from them. And because they swore in the name of Eru Ilúvatar that this oath, it compelled them for the rest of their lives to chase the Silmarils, and it just caused untold misery. It was like heart-wrenching. And they ended up doing some very bad things, like killing other elves, and basically they became the bad guys by the end. And the kicker was that the Silmarils burned anybody who had impure hearts. So by the time they were able to hold them, Morgoth couldn't hold the Silmarils because they burnt his hand. And they burnt his hand so badly, and Morgoth was a Valar, like an archangel, like a god of his own. They burnt his hand so badly that he always felt the pain forever. But by the time Feanor's sons got hold of any of the Silmarils, they couldn't hold them because they'd burned them. And so my point being, oaths in Lord of the Rings shouldn't be taken lightly. And that's why Elrond doesn't swear anybody to an oath, because he knows that more harm can come of it than good. So just thought that was a wee little detail to point out to you. It's that's the thing with these films. It's like such an inconspicuous line that like I'll hold no oaths other than to go further than you go as far as you will kind of thing. Just so inconsequential. But then once you learn everything behind it, you're like, oh fuck me. But a bit lighter is. Do you remember? So they leave Rivendell, and Frodo's saying like, which way's Mordor? Is it left or right? And then Gandalf says left. And then we start some pretty badass like mountain shots and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What did you think of the ruins and stuff that you saw? Like the couple of the panning shots.
It looks like what I imagine Switzerland to look like.
It was shot in New Zealand, so not too far away from it. Like it's mountainous, I guess.
It's over the other side of the world.
Yeah, it's mountains. It's all mountains. Do you reckon they have mountain roller coasters there as well?
Maybe. No, it's just very vast.
Yeah, it was huge. What do you think of the music, though, while they were doing that?
It was very inspiring.
I do remember that.
But I feel like you're going to give me some bit of information here, additional.
Nah, I just fucking love the music.
I feel like...
No, I just
I'm
fucking...
like, where's this going?
Nah, I just love the music.
Being led.
No, I just, do you know that bit where like Gandalf like steps through the rock at the top of the mountain and then they're going?
Yeah, and then the shot kind of pans upwards.
Oh, to Caradhras, yeah, the mountain.
And points down. No, so it like arcs over. So you see Gandalf in like the Hobbit from like a downwards angle, and then the camera comes up and over.
Oh, when they're making their camp where they're doing with the swords and that?
No, when they're going through that gap.
Is this when it's really badly snowing?
No, when they're going through the gap.
Yeah, and the music goes na 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 na. That bit, yeah.
Yeah, and they're going through that little gap.
Yeah.
And the camera like goes over, so you just see the.
Oh yeah, you do.
The cool guy.
Yes. Okay.
Coming up.
Yeah.
And over.
Yeah. All right. No,
you get me?
Yeah, I get what you mean. The only thing, right, and this is a problem of technology. Is one of the first shots when they leave Rivendell. Do you know when you see like they're just passing some ruins on the mountain, and it's like because we were watching it in 4K, you can see the ruins are just on a mountain, like some elven ruins, right? And it's really obvious like CGI. And the first time I watched these films was in like 2001, 2002 when they were first released, or 2002, 2003, and it was on like a bootleg VHS, like a video copy, so it was super fucking low quality, right? But now we're watching it in 4K, like you can see the engravings on Sauron's helmet right at the beginning, for example. So like the tagline for 4K should be like, now watch all your favourite films as if they were a school play, because like
Yeah, but if you're watching it like I have for like the first time,
Oh yeah, you're not noticing.
I didn't
yeah.
even notice.
Yeah, it's just that those ruins on the mountain made me think of like do you know, like those clip art like programs that kids use at school where you'll have like a dragon sticker.
It's just reminding me of what was that Christmas film we watched where it had Arnold Schwarzenegger in.
Oh, Jingle All the Way with the bad
and
CGI
the guy
yeah.
from the cross.
At the end where he does like a stunt where he jumps down and you see him like tumble, but then in the next shot he's just falling straight.
It's
like
literally just like he's a doll.
Yeah, it's just really bad like continuity. Oh yeah, but this is around this time, right? To set the scene for you. Imagine a chubby little, what was that, 7, 8-year-old at the time? I think I'd have been about 8, right? 8-year-old Chris watching Lord of the Rings: Return of the King for Fellowship of the Ring for the first time on VHS, and I was also playing a game called Final Fantasy VII at the same time on PlayStation 1. Now these were the first two like pieces of media I remember thinking, holy shit, I fucking love the music of these, like, independent of the thing I was watching. So, like, that bit where they come, like you were saying, the shot where they come through the rocks and the music just crests, like, that stirs something in me to this day, just in the same way that when I hear, like, the Final Fantasy VII soundtrack, it's the same thing. So, just a wee little formative moment for me there is thinking, holy shit, like, this music is fucking great. Like, if I was, if we were saying it in today's language, I'd say it be vibing. Oh, I'm so old.
No
Cap. No cat. Yeah. So the phrase "no cap," which is a bit of a novelty to me and Becca because we're both in our late 20s. I'm just about to turn 30.
I don't even know what it means.
Yeah. Well, so I heard the phrase "no cap," and I was like, "What the hell does that mean?" And I told it to Becca, but she misheard me, and so kept saying "no cat" for a while, which was endlessly amusing. But then you pointed this out when we were watching it. Gandalf's like voice just says like, "Oh, it's 40 days to the Gap of Rohan." That's a long fucking journey.
Yeah, which
and that's just a tiny part of it as well.
Which I'm glad that they cleared that up how long it would take, because I think if I hadn't have heard that, I'd be like, why are these people so emotional? Like, they seem really super emotional.
Oh, that's a good point, yeah.
But when you think about the fact that these people are together 24/7
Yeah.
for at least 40 days.
Well, that's 40 days to the Gap of Rohan. So, by the way, at the end of... They don't make it to the Gap of Rohan. Like, they don't end up going that way anyway. But you've got Bilbo's 111th birthday and Frodo's 33rd birthday, which everybody forgets about, but whatever, not bitter. Then 17 years later, they leave the Shire. So that's 17 years of Gandalf, Sam and Frodo just kind of like kicking about in the Shire, getting to know each other. Merry and Pippin, 17 years, blah, blah, blah. Then it takes, I forget how long it takes them to get to Rivendell, but it's a chunky amount of time. So let's just take the Conqueror challenge that I'm doing at the moment, right? I'm doing the Shire to Bree, and that's 230 something kilometres. So they had to cover 130 miles as Sam, Frodo, Merry and Pippin, as the four of them, before they even met Aragorn. Then Aragorn leads them through the wilderness to Weathertop and then to Rivendell. So that, let's just say conservatively, because Frodo wakes up after the ringwraiths stab him. He wakes up on like the 26th of October and they're set off sometime in September. So let's say it's conservatively, it's about 2 months that they're travelling together. Then they leave Rivendell. It's going to be another 40 days to the Gap of Rohan. So like at this point, like, yeah, they've been like, you've got a good chunk of the Fellowship, like Frodo, Sam, Merry, Pippin, Strider. They've been together for like over a month. Like all 5 of them, but 4 of them before that, you know, like closer to 2 months. It's just, yeah, like you're right, like they're all growing a lot closer. And the scale of things. So, for example, in The Hobbit, I think Bilbo gets back maybe 13 months after he leaves. Because everyone thinks he's dead, you know, they're auctioning off his estate and that, and he's having to get all his stuff back. So that's how long Bilbo's journey takes. But I think The Lord of the Rings is about 6 months. Maybe. Yes, so from, 9 months maybe? Because the end of the main bits of the trilogy before all the endings is in March. Because that's when the Fourth Age starts. It's like March the something is the beginning of the Fourth Age of Middle-earth, and that's basically the end of The Lord of the Rings. So yeah, you're right, like they're all growing a lot closer. But we see that when they stop to rest, when they're going through the mountains, Legolas with his elf eyes spies something in the distance. which turns out to be just a fuckload of little birds who were spies. I can't remember the exact name for them. I try to write it down, but I forgot. I'm not googling it now. But it's basically Saruman's spies, and they try and hide from them. Saruman gets tipped off. Yeah, the birds. Alfred Hitchcock sends them. Saruman knows where they're going, and he starts shouting. You know, so do you know when they say that there's a fell voice on the air? So what do you think about that? That was like, it's one of the more blatant uses of magic there. So what were your thoughts when you watched that?
Just that I always see Gandalf and Saruman as equals, but Saruman easily wrecks that journey.
Oh, he does, yeah.
And Gandalf's just kind of shouting, and it doesn't seem to have any effect.
Yeah, he tries to like counterspell it, but he doesn't.
I feel like
doesn't use
Gandalf looks super weak in this film.
Well, he is Gandalf the Grey, and that's Saruman the White. You know, so like it's you know, Saruman's the head of the order.
Every different.
Yeah, Saruman's the head of the order, so
colour.
Kind of, yeah. Well, Saruman's the head of the order, like, so he's got a little bit more power imbued in him. But yeah, it's just no. This is one of those things from the book that I wasn't sure how different it was, because I'm pretty sure in the book, Caradhras itself is malevolent. The mountain itself is like, get the fuck off me. And as soon as they come down the slopes, it stops like storming and that. So I don't know if Saruman just wakes it up or what, but like, I'm pretty sure I need to reread the books, to be honest. Would have been a good exercise before we started this podcast. But I thought, hey, with it being a drunk history Middle Earth, I'm not going to cheat anyone by doing too much prep in advance. It's going to be, what can you rattle off while you're drinking?
Yeah.
And I think we're doing all right so far. But yeah, the spies of Saruman fly over. The next they make for the pass of Caradhras across the top of it, the Try, where it's snowy. And this bit made me laugh, and I don't know what you thought of it, but so Frodo falls, the ring comes off. He
that
falls,
was ridiculous.
He falls and smashes his ring. Boromir picks it up, right? And he's just looking at it, which then things get a bit tense, right? So what were your thoughts on that?
I just thought, like, Frodo, if you slip, you don't do like a backflip somersault. And you've got that like cloak on or whatever. And you, like, his ring is always tucked in his shirt. And somehow, in his backflip somersault, his ring gets past his shirt collar, gets past his cloak thing, and also goes over that frizzy mop hair.
Yeah. In
the space of a 2-second flip, okay? It just makes no sense.
Right, that's a very good point. I'd never thought of that, because
it's an absolute joke.
Yeah, because I've tried to put like a necklace over your head, or like...
Oh,
yeah, it's really difficult. That's why they have clasps, isn't it?
And as well, right, the girls will know this. When you wear a necklace...
It's a bit fucking baldy to assume women are listening to this.
When you wear a necklace...
Hey, one woman.
And you've got long hair, the clasp always gets caught in the little fine hairs on your neck. Always gets stuck, or wrapped around or tangled.
Or tangled in your moustache.
So there's no chance of that coming off his neck.
See, the thing is, right, at first, when we started talking about this, just this section, I wanted to defend the ring and be like, well, the ring's got a will of its own, it wants to come off, which it does, fair dues, but I bought you a necklace for Christmas, right? I had to get somebody else to do the clasp in the jewellery shop because it's so fucking fidgety. Like, knee chance that's coming off. Like, so Peter Jackson would point out some continuity. I know you're listening. You need to go back and do some reshoots. Get Sean Bean. Get Sean Bean. Get Viggo Mortensen. Get Elijah Wood. Get back to New Zealand and fucking sort that out. But the bit I wanted to draw your attention, right, is I've banged on about this enough, right? Frodo is at least 50 here, closer to 51, right? Do you know what I'm going to say? Because Aragorn gets really tense, and he's like, Boromir, give him it back. Like, that kind of thing. And then Boromir's like, all right, and gives him it, and then ruffles his hair. Now, right, your dad's bald, so it's not a good example. But imagine me. So Boromir is closer to my age than Frodo's, right? Imagine me ruffling a 50-year-old man's head. Like, it's just like, there you go, son. Like, I know, like, Boromir...
But is that not because Frodo is young in Hobbit age?
Well, kind of, but it's more like Men of Gondor. They say...
Equally, Frodo's a bit of a, like a youthful chap, isn't he?
He is, but like they've been travelling together for a while at this point, so they you know, they roughly should know how old everyone is. Like, you're travelling with an elf who's about 2,000 years old as well. Gimli's 60 odd, maybe. Oh no, is he? Gimli might be 160, between 60 and 120. Because I know he was too young to join the hobbits, so I'm not sure how old Gimli is, but I need to double check that. But I just can't get the image out of my head of like your dad with hair and me just like ruffling his hair. That wouldn't go down well, would it? Like, oh, there you go, mate. Just, there you go, son. Pop along. It's just so fucking... Oh, it's so weird. Next thing was, I can't remember being in the film. Did you notice if Legolas left any marks in the snow?
Are you joking me?
You don't watch things with like a keen eye?
Like a hawk?
Yeah.
No,
well,
because it's usually on a night time when I'm tired.
No, fair. Well, the reason is, in the books, Legolas is a bit of a dick, right? So when they're going along the path of Caradhras, and it's like snowing heavily, and it's like literally chest high on like Boromir, meaning the hobbits have to be carried. Gimli's just like, no, and just like powers through it. But Legolas just runs along the top, and he's like, oh, if only we're all as light as... Yeah, as if you're all only as light as elves. So I just thought, I wanted to point out that Legolas is a bit of an arsehole.
I would be if I was that like light on my feet.
Yeah, but he's basically just like...
Because he's getting held back by all that. He could just power through.
Yeah, he's basically just running along going, ha,
Weak.
Sucks to be you. But then we switch, and you see Saruman and his mines and his forges. Now, before I mention this, so you see them in the mountains along the snow and that, and then you switch to Saruman. It's a very different look.
The juxtaposition.
Yeah, so like he's in his mines and his forges, like, and there's loads of noise, and even the music is like dun 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 dun. So, what were your thoughts about Saruman's shit? What he's got going on with the Uruk-hai and that?
It just was very industrious and just typical baddie. Like, you know, like you could totally imagine Darth Maul down there chilling.
Yeah. Yeah, fair enough.
That's the one with the red spiky hairs.
It is, yeah.
Like, totally imagine
horns,
him just, like, walking past, like, hey, guys.
Yeah.
Like, proper hellish.
Funnily enough, I think at one point in the Clone Wars series for Star Wars, Maul does run, like, a gang and stuff, so, like, he would be doing stuff like that. But, yeah, what I've got here is that Saruman is showing, like, in the first part where Gandalf gets kidnapped by Saruman, and you notice it's all trees and paths and it looks beautiful in Orthanc where Saruman lives.
Yeah.
Then the next time we see it, it's all stripped, completely bare, and he's burning everything. So like Saruman to me, and I think Tolkien was angling for this as well, is that he's showing the evils of industry. So in the books, like, he's burning down the trees for fuel, and we'll get to that in the next film. And he even makes things like gunpowder, so he's turning like the idyllic countryside of the Shire. He's turning he does this as well. He's turning idyllic countryside into industrious hellholes, essentially. He does it with the scouring of the Shire. It's not in the films, but in the books right at the end. Shout out to Martin, who every time I talk to him about Lord of the Rings, he's like, they shouldn't have left the scouring of the Shire out of the films. I think they did shoot it. Peter Jackson just didn't have time to include it. But basically, Saruman fucks up the Shire at one point as well, and he turns it into like Orthanc 2.0, where everything's like industry. So Tolkien was growing up in Birmingham, where he'd be in the countryside and just loving life. But
in the industrial age.
Well, Tolkien was kicking around like early 20th century. He was kicking around. Because he died in the 70s. But I think I've heard it say that either Orthanc or Orthanc and Barad-dûr, the two towers, are based on textile mill chimneys he could see, like, near the countryside. So he was around, Tolkien himself, like, was around very much when, like, the industry was spreading at the coast of the countryside. Now, we're quite lucky, and this is one thing I love about where we live, is I always say you can walk and you're in greenery wherever you go. But I'm from Teesside. I'm from Stockton. So, like, that's very much industry. Like, you got things like ICI and all that stuff. So, like, Teesside to me very, very much is kind of like, it's that thing of, like, industry at the expense of nature. Whereas Durham... Lots
of grey.
Yeah, with lots of grey, exactly. So the people from Stockton are called smoggies because of the pollution, you know, like, whereas the thing I love about where we live is I'm going on a hike tomorrow with our kid, like I mentioned, and within 10 minutes of me setting off from our house, I'm going to be looking out over fields for miles and miles and miles, and that for me is absolutely fantastic. Like I love that. But you see that's what Saruman's doing is the evils of industry, and that's what he's really setting off now. And we'll see in the next film that he's really going to piss off the wrong creatures of Middle Earth when he's fucking up the trees. But another thing I want to mention is, as much as I think he's a dick because I'm quite an eco, I love being like an eco-friendly person. Saruman is a bit of a tragic figure as well, in my opinion. But what is your opinion of what you've seen of him so far?
He's a go-getter, isn't he? I think he's...
You writing his CV?
Yeah. Has a lot of self-motivation, but, he's also obviously highly influenced by Sauron, is that the one?
Yeah. Using the Palantir and
I
stuff like
get
that.
confused between his name and...
Saruman. Yeah. Same.
But I think, go him, he's doing what he wants, and yeah, it sucks, but he gets everything going pretty quickly, and he builds his army really quickly, and even though I think that's pretty weak, because he uses the weak of the weak for his army, they're just literally, they're like ants, aren't they?
Well, there's orcs from Mordor.
It takes 5 seconds to kill 100.
Well, if you're Aragorn,
if you trip them over, they die.
This is the D&D fallacy, though, right? So, it's the heroes who go out on adventures, and it's oh, that was really that was a really easy fight. But then you look at the stat block for a commoner who's got 4 HP. So in D&D, for example, rules is written: a cat, a common house cat, can kill a commoner because a commoner's only got 4 HP. So if a cat gets the right amount of attacks, it can kill a commoner. So that's the thing, we look at the orcs as being really easy to
just
kill.
like Skittles?
Well, yeah, but that's because they're being killed by heroes. Whereas in the Rings of Power, actually, you see a normal person go up against the orc, and it is a much tougher fight. It is much tougher. And I'm going to go to the toilet. So, Saruman, maybe he's sympathetic, maybe he's not, as you say, he's an ambitious goal-getter, as you'd write on his CV, I think. What's really sad, though, is Saruman... is it sad? I don't know. At the end of his life, Saruman, spoiler alert, he dies at the end, right? Well, he dies at different places, depending on whether it's the books or the films. In the films, he dies earlier than in the book. But in the books, when he dies, you see his spirit kind of float up. You see a cloud almost that floats up, and it looks to the west, and for a second there's a pause, then a wind blows him away. So essentially that's taken to mean that Manwë, the king of the Valar, he's the head of the Valar, he's rejecting, because he's the king of the winds as well, he's rejecting Saruman's spirit from returning back to Valinor. So you fell too far, you failed in your mission, you're not coming back.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So it's pretty tragic, because he's then cursed to wander Middle-earth as a spirit for all of time. Perhaps until Dagor-Dagorath, which is... do you know the Norse concept of Ragnarok?
Mm.
That's Tolkien's version of it. It's the last war. It's the war where everybody who's ever died comes back to life, and they all fight one last time against Morgoth. Because currently Morgoth sits outside of reality. He passed through the doors of night and was banished into the void. And that's where he'll stay until the end of days. And once the end of days happens, Dagor-Dagorath is the massive war to end all wars, and then after that, Eru Ilúvatar will remake the world. So that's interesting. But I'm not sure whether... So do you know how the afterlife works in Middle-earth?
No.
Okay. Quite surprised you don't.
I just know that when elves are fuck this, they can decide to go disappear.
Yeah. So elves... live forever, essentially, right? But it's just a case of where do they live forever. When they become sick of Middle-earth, they can go back to Valinor, which is where they're originally from. And to do that, they get on a ship and they go on the Valar can make a choice and say, yeah, come back. And they let them through. Men can't go there, except by exception. Dwarves, hobbits can't go there except for very few instances, right? Dwarves, but when elves die, they go to the Hall of Mandos, and Mandos is one of the Valar, and he's death. He's like the Greek god of the underworld, Hades, in that he's not evil or anything. He's just doing a job.
Grim Reaper.
Not the Grim Reaper, but more he's an implacable figure who sits on his throne, and the Fëa, or the spirit of, if you will, of the elves, go to the Hall of Mandos, where they reside for a time before they're either reincarnated into a new body. Well, actually, yeah, they're pretty much all reincarnated into a new body. And it just takes, it depends how long that they want to stay there. So, like, Fëanor, for example, who turned into a right bastard by the end, he's still in the Halls of Mandos. And he may not be released from the Halls of Mandos until Dagor Dagorath, the last war. Again, there's only one notable exception to that, and that again is Beren and Luthien, but it's a very sad story that we'll cover another time. So that's elves. They go to the Halls of Mandos, they stay for a while, and then they're reincarnated. Valinor essentially is like elf heaven. Men and hobbits, however, they're interesting because nobody knows what happens to them. Eru takes them outside of the they go outside of the cosmos almost. Like Eru takes them, and I think they sit with him in what's called the Timeless Halls, where Eru lives. And men and hobbits have what's called the Gift of Iluvatar, where they get true death, and that true death is like heaven, essentially, like a proper heaven, where they can live. So, the Maiar live in Valinor as well. I forgot to mention that. The elves and the Maiar and the Valar live in Valinor. So the elves
haven't really got it that good.
No, that's a thing as well, and you've nailed it there, because they get weary of the world.
Yeah, it must be boring.
They live for so long that they get weary, and they think that's why it's called the Gift of Iluvatar, that men get the gift of a true death. Elves don't get that. They essentially have to live forever until the end of the world. Orcs, allegedly. So this is a theory I kind of read it once. So you know in the film Saruman says that, do you know how the orcs came to be? That they were twisted from elves in the like Morgoth. So that's what Saruman says in the like Fellowship of the Ring. He says that like they were twisted by Morgoth into orcs. So the question then must be, surely the orcs go to the Halls of Mandos and sit alongside the elves, which would be very interesting, considering how differently elves and orcs are. Because again, evil.
What about goblins?
Goblins and orcs are the same thing.
Ah.
I know, it's confusing.
Jeez.
I know. That's confused a lot of people, to be fair, for a long time. But back to the film, we then see, so Saruman is casting his spell, and he's causing a blizzard on Caradhras. And have you ever seen that meme where they're walking through the pass and it's all dead snowy, and they say, "We must turn back," and Gandalf turns around in a really high-pitched voice and just goes, "No!" I'll show you if you haven't seen it, but it always makes me laugh when I see that scene. Gimli's been saying we should go through the Mines of Moria. Gandalf doesn't want to because he knows that there's something down there, but they're in such a desperate state. He says to Frodo, "Let you decide." And Frodo says, "Let's go to the Mines of Moria." So then they're headed.
Yeah, because it's like, it's not really a decision for Frodo, because they're like, the hobbits will die. They'll not last any longer. It's not as if Frodo's going to be like, "Oh yeah, fine with that. Let's keep plodding on." Yeah,
pretty much. Like it's between a rock and a hard place, essentially. That's not a mountain
rock and
pun.
A cold place.
Yeah, it's not a mountain pun. But they go to the Mines of Moria, which Gimli says that my cousin Balin will give us a royal welcome. You see, obviously that's not really the case. Now, you had a question about why doesn't Gimli know about the doors, right?
Yeah, I was like, why? It's a dwarf door. Surely Gimli would know how to get in a dwarf door. Because at first, when I first watched that part, the facial expressions that Gimli gives, you kind of think, oh, has he got a hidden agenda here? Because they do a couple of like shots of his face where it looks like he's like a bit sheepish. Like, so he suggests we should go through the mines, and Gandalf's like, nah. And you think, this is some hidden agenda. Then he's like, when they're trying to get in the door, Gimli's just kind of sat back, like, and it just looks really suspicious.
That's interesting.
But then you find out that that's not the case. It's just really weird. Maybe I read that wrong.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I kind of get the impression that Gandalf's trying to not cause unnecessary heartache.
And as well, I kind of thought, oh, maybe he's because of the greed of dwarves. That might be why.
Ah, he couldn't pass up the chance to see the mithril or something.
No, the dwarves down there might steal the ring.
Oh!
That's why Gandalf was like, no,
Oh.
no. Because he mentions about the greed of dwarves, doesn't he?
Well, it is mentioned. It's quite well known. I don't know if Gandalf does, but wow, that's an interesting point, because...
So I was like, oh yeah,
I've
you would
never
want to
thought
take that down there. And
Yeah.
especially, like, you can imagine if a dwarf got a ring like that, they'd be like, right, let's do a fuckload of mining. Let's use this to forge the best, I don't know, weapons ever known. And
I've never
which
thought about that.
I would
But
do.
now that you've mentioned it, that is a very good point. My take from it was that Gandalf knew something was wrong, but he didn't want to distract Gimli by causing unnecessary heartbreak, where it's like, so it's been like, I think it's about 40, 50 years since Balin set off to retake Moria, so it was about 10, 20 years after the events of The Hobbit that Balin set out to take back the Mines of Moria.
That's another bit I don't like as well about Gandalf. I just don't like him. Because he's like that boss that keeps you, like, out of the loop. Like, he knows all these things.
Ah, yeah, it's like, it's on a
and
need
he's
to
never
know
just
basis.
there.
Yeah, it's on a
And
need to know
just-
basis.
It really pisses me off.
Yeah.
But it's like, I think the film's trying to make him seem as if he's such a lovely person and it's for their own good that they don't know. Like, you know, even in the beginning when he's like saying to Frodo, hide this ring.
Yeah, keep it secret.
Why
keep
can't
it
he
safe.
just tell him?
Yeah, I was
Because he's
talking.
going to find out anyway.
It's so weird. I was talking about this with someone at work the other day, saying that like if I'll do things I don't agree with. If you tell me the rationale, sometimes like even if I don't agree with the course of action, if I know why that rationale is like that, I could go along with it if that's what the orders are. But telling me to do something without telling me why is just going to make me rebel. Like, fuck you. Like, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Because we're here because we think. Like, well, we're paid to think. Like, this was at work. I was saying like we're paid to think. We're not paid to just do. So it's same with the Fellowship as well. Like, yeah, be more open, Gandalf. You fuck.
Yeah, at least Saruman's like, this is what I want, Gandalf.
Yeah.
Are you going to follow?
Well, so, in terms of the doors then, and I explained this to you the other night when we were watching it, Gimli doesn't know about the doors because, once again, we're in a time where the world is declining, and these particular doors on the western side, I think, the western side of the Misty Mountains, were built in the Second Age by the dwarf Narvi and the elven smith Celebrimbor. And do you remember who Celebrimbor is?
Haven't a clue.
Fuck's sake. He forged the
Rings?
rings, yeah? He was the elven smith Celebrimbor who forged the elven rings under the tutelage of Saruman, under the guise of... Do you remember when I said he became Anatar, the Lord of Gifts?
Yeah.
So Celebrimbor and Narvi had a good kind of relationship, and they built the secret door into the mines of Moria out of Ithilidin, which is kind of like a metal or an alloy made from mithril, which only shines under starlight or moonlight. So we're in the year 3000 and something of the Third Age, and this was built in the Second Age, so it's at least 3000 years ago. And dwarves are long-lived, but that's still a long time. So Gimli doesn't know about this because this is all history now. It's all ancient history. And I was saying to you, like, dwarves and elves at this point hate each other, but most of them, even the elves, don't remember why. It's the sad thing is like a lot of them don't know why they hate, but people like Galadriel will remember. I think it's something to do with. I think the necklace was called like the Naglamir or something like that, but whatever. Then you had another question, because they were going into the mines eventually, and Sam had to send the pony home, didn't he?
Oh, little Bob.
Bill. Can't have meant that much to you.
I'm
Fucking
thinking
hell.
about fish.
What fish?
Well, whenever you get a goldfish, you call it Bob, don't you? When you're little.
No?
Right, okay, so when I got goldfish when I was little, they were always called Bob.
Because they bobbed.
No, because they
Oh.
go Bob, Bob, with their mouths. Their mouths look like they're constantly saying Bob. Anyway, so I got confused. Okay, Bill, but no, Bill.
Yeah, see, isn't marriage a journey? Every day I learn something about you. Crazy. But yes, to answer your question, Bill does manage to find his way home.
Phew!
And in fact, he ends up back at the Prancing Pony with Tom the barman.
What a coincidence.
Well, and Tom treats
A
it like...
pony at the prancing pony.
Well, Bill has to work hard, but he's treated very well. He's worked hard, but he's treated very well. And Sam picks him up on the way back, on the when they do their journey home. Spoilers. And in fact, right at the end, the very, very end, the very, very, very end, Bill's there. He's there right at the very end.
Well, that was a nice happy ending.
It was, yeah. They open the door by ingeniously solving the riddle, the Elvish word for friend, Melon. But Pippin, Pippin, the div, as a very good mnemonic for us to remember, is throwing fucking stones in the water, which disturbs something. Now, this is one of my favourite topics of all time, considering tomorrow I'm playing a tabletop game called Call of Cthulhu, and then Monday, because my D&D group that I play with, like Becca and Elise and Ace, because we made unexpected decisions, because we made an unexpected decision and actually sided with the bad guys, we kind of upset her plans of what she thought we'd do. So we have to take a break for a couple of weeks while she sorts that out and rewrites the story. So I'm also running a game on Monday of Call of Cthulhu. And I say that because what they disturb in the water is called the Watcher in the water. And it is one of the nameless things, which are eldritch beings that exist in Middle-earth. So eldritch being kind of like this unknowable entity from outside, from something different. It's not part of creation. But you made some quite crass jokes when we were watching it about the Watcher in the water. Would you care to share that with anybody? I think
I'm all right.
Yeah. Well, what were your thoughts of seeing the Watcher in the water, the big kraken like motherfucker?
Just, it's a very big being for that small body of water.
So what that body of water is, it's not, and I understand why you said that, it's not terribly explained in the films. That's essentially a lake that's crept right up there.
Ah, right, okay.
In the years and years and years. It actually like joins caves and stuff like that. Like it's all underwater, it all joins stuff. But obviously, like Peter Jackson couldn't spend the time to do like a fucking David Attenborough documentary.
Why not?
I know, right? I'd love that.
Seems like he hasn't had a lot of time to do much, has he?
It's because there's so much. We do this in 2 hours. We've got 40 minutes left before I'm going to call an end to this because I'm setting it as a timer of 2 hours an episode. And we're only at the Mines of fucking Moria.
Right, so yeah,
the Eldritch
big kraken thing.
Yeah, it's an Eldritch being. It's called the Nameless Thing. One of the Nameless Things, sorry. And Gandalf has seen a few of them. And they come into the play in the story later. But another notable representation of something like that is a giant spider called Ungoliant, who helped Morgoth when he was like stealing the Silmarils. And Ungoliant was a giant spider who came from the abyss. She wasn't a Maiar. She wasn't a Valar. She wasn't anything. She came from the abyss. She came from outside of creation. And if there's any Stephen King fans who are listening, I always liken it to the Dark Tower series with the Todash darkness, which is the darkness that exists between realities. So if you imagine like a multiverse theory, but then in between it you've got these blank spaces, and that's where these types of creatures live. So do you know it?
Yeah.
That is a creature from the Todash darkness in Stephen King's universe. It's a creature that comes from outside of the universe. So I always imagine it in the same kind of order of being as those. It's just these things that exist outside of reality as we know it, making them eldritch. Something Lovecraft loved to talk about. Mainly because he loved describing things as indescribable, which is a bit fucking lazy, if you ask me. But then we have the Watcher fight, awesome, blah, 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 slash it, hack it, shoot it.
Yeah, so they're trying to escape from the inside.
Yeah, they get in.
Out.
They get in, yeah.
And then they turn around and are running back in.
Yeah, exactly. And then I think it's Boromir who says, like, this is no mine, it's a tomb.
Yeah.
Because you see all the skeletons everywhere. We know it's a 4-day journey. Like you said as we were watching it, it provides scale. It's a 4-day journey from one side to the other. We also know Gollum's still following them. And then Gandalf and Frodo have a very poignant conversation. Do you remember much about that?
Yeah, about pretty Bilbo didn't. But before that, can we just talk about the Mithril?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
It's beautiful. Yeah, you are a magpie.
Just really spoke to me and my mining ability.
Mm.
It made me want to play WoW again and get my little axe out and mine everything. Anyway, so it was like the beginning scene of Snow White when the dwarves are mining and all of it's glittering. Lovely. Anyway,
are you just singing "Hi Ho" whenever in your head whenever you see something shiny?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure as well. I don't know if it's 100% true, but I'm pretty sure that this is Tolkien invented mithril.
Ooh.
So we see it everywhere in fiction now, but I'm pretty sure he might have. I don't know. I might be wrong.
So anyway,
Basically, Moria's
Gandalf gets lost.
Yes.
He forgets his path. I don't think he says he gets lost.
He says, "I have no memory
of
this
place." I've got no memory. Proper old man shit.
Yeah.
Then Gollum's just like peeking, sneaking about, and Gandalf explains that it's actually Smeagol. Is that right?
Yeah. He tells him his name, like.
Frodo's like, pity Bilbo didn't kill him when he had the chance. And Gandalf's like, well,
he said pity. He said like pity. It's pity that stayed his hand, and he says like many that live deserve death, and some that die deserve life. Can you give it to them? And do not be too eager to deal out death and judgment, which is words that will it shapes things to go later on, which is good. But it's very poignant. But it's then ruined a little bit later by Pippin the Div dropping the bucket and skeleton down Balin's tomb. So Gimli discovers that Balin's dead.
Well, no, first, you can't forget that Gandalf remembers where he doesn't remember. He just uses his nose to sniff his way through the mine, which just sounds absolutely ridiculous. But anyway, they stumble upon the tomb
of Balin, who was one of the dwarves in The Hobbit.
And Gandalf finds the lovely book, the diary. He's reading it out quite poignantly.
Where you see that... So basically the story is that Balin and his cadre or his fellowship, or Balin's fellowship, in the books, they recapture part of Moria, and they make a throne room in the eastern part, and they capture Moria apart, because Moria spans the whole Misty Mountains. It's fucking huge, right? It's got multiple cities in there. So Dwarrodelf that they come to is one city, but Balin captures part of the eastern side of Moria and makes his kingdom there, and he's Lord of Moria for a bit, but then obviously he's overrun and killed. So even at his height of success, there were still parts of large swaths of Moria that weren't able to be conquered again. And it's not just orcs we see, because Pippin the Div drops the skeleton in the bucket down. And they go dong 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 dong. And then you hear the
dong.
Yeah, and you hear
then you hear the thump.
Now, I tried to explain to Becca, but anybody who's played the Lord of the Rings Two Towers video game would remember this level, because the Tomb of Balin is really, really fucking good for getting up your skills and that. I remember having mithril arrows as Legolas, just absolutely slaying people as a kid. But also they have
noise of the cave trolls.
The cave, because they have a cave troll. Now, interestingly enough, cave trolls are... So orcs are twisted versions of elves, right? Cave trolls are twisted versions of ents, which are the guardians of the forest, which you'll meet in the next film. But do you know the big trees?
Yeah.
That's what trolls are a mimicry of, is of them. Okay. So it's every evil being kind of already has its counterpart. So the Nazgul ride their big things, the fell beasts. They're kind of an answer to the giant eagles, and so on and so forth. Because evil can't create, evil can only twist and corrupt.
Okay, so, that makes sense.
Yeah, but just before that as well, I've got here that you commented while we were watching it, that when Pippin drops the things down the well, and Gandalf's throw yourself in next time, save us from your foolishness, you commented that Gandalf feels like you do with our child sometimes, because of the way he's always having to tell him off.
Yeah, it's just that you just feel that pure frustration, because you're just why? Why is it always you? Why are you always picking up something that you shouldn't be? And he's just a really frustrating character. I would have binned him by now. Would have fed him to that bloody octopus there.
Right, well, I hope that doesn't carry over to our child, because I love our child very much.
Well, I mean, she's still here, so...
Anyway.
I haven't stuck her in the doghouse in the garden.
They have the fight, which is an epic fight. Unfortunately, it doesn't do much lore-wise, but it is a great fight in the tomb. Frodo gets stabbed, and Sam goes absolutely mental with his frying pan, which is great. But then Frodo gets stabbed, and they discover that he's wearing a mithril coat. Now, I'm pretty sure in the books, it happens in a little bit of a different way. So Gandalf tells them to run out the back of the tomb, and they do in the books. And Gandalf puts a spell on the tomb door, which, when the Balrog, as it's later we discover it's a Balrog that's here as well, this is in the books, the Balrog touches the door and nearly kills Gandalf with the force of its counterspell, because Gandalf is meeting a being on the same level as him, but it doesn't have its power restrained like Gandalf does. However, in the films, they flee, they run out of the tomb, and they make it down into a giant hall where the orcs all surround them. In the books, Boromir blows his horn so loudly that it causes the orcs to falter for a second. Like, they dare not attack because his horn's so loud, like it scares them. So that's the magic of the Horn of Gondor. But in the films, nothing like that really happens. And they're surrounded by orcs. Looks like they're ready to kill them. And then you hear the dum, dum, and you see the flames. And all of a sudden, the orcs just fucking gone.
Scatter.
Gone. And they're told to run because there's a Balrog.
And you get the shot of Legolas, like...
Gandalf says it's a Balrog of Morgoth, a demon from the ancient world. Or he says a Balrog, a demon from the ancient world. And Legolas is just, he knows what's up there. The Balrog in the films has wings. It's up in the air whether Balrogs actually had wings, pun intended. Because Tolkien wrote that it was wreathed in shadow and flame and it unfurled like wings. So, or unfurled wings of shadow or something like that. So it's a bit up in the air about whether it
is a winged creature.
Yeah, so...
Demon.
Yeah, pretty much. That particular Balrog is called Durin's Bane, and it killed King Durin the Sixth, one of the kings of the dwarfs, obviously. They woke it when they were mining for mithril, because it was... Obviously, they dug too deep and too greedily, is the official line. And that is it's a holdover from the years before the First Age. So this is one of the direct servants of Morgoth, just like Sauron is. And this is one of the servants of Morgoth. And this very well might have been a Balrog who took part in the fall of Gondolin, which was the greatest elf city of the First Age. Some really big war shit. In Tolkien's earliest writings, there was indications that Balrogs were kind of like shock troopers. There was meant to be loads of them. They were kind of just like tougher orcs. But then he dialed it back in later writings and made them much more powerful. And that there was no more than 7 of them who existed. And of one of them, 2 of them are only named. There's Durin's Bane, and then there's the king of them, which is Gothmog. And Gothmog, the king of the Balrogs, wounded Fëanor so badly that he was going to die from his wounds. So pretty freaking powerful creatures. But Gandalf condenses all of what I've just said and says, "This foe's beyond any of you. Run." So they all just run, and we get to a bit which I find, because they're on that big staircase when they're going down, and I found it great. You were adamant that you could make that jump while you were being shot at by arrows.
Easy.
Fair dues.
Complete it, mate.
Yeah, fair dues.
Well, the angle, you say, it's the angle. Gravity pull you down as well, so as long as you make a big enough jump.
Well, I'm going to throw rocks at you and get you to jump down our stairs and see what happens. Just to see.
Easy.
Yeah, just see what happens. But yeah, then we have that great line from Gimli. Nobody tosses a dwarf.
I know, you're really missing out, Gimli.
Yeah, exactly. Fucking amateur. Don't knock it till you tried it, bro. But yeah, there's not much of note until Gandalf has pretty much his best moment, where he's like, "You shall not pass, flame of Udun," and Gandalf kind of cracks out his credentials, like he's a wielder of the secret flame of Arnor, which is basically
he's
saying,
flexing. Yeah,
he's basically saying, "I've got one of the great rings. You do not know who you are fucking with. Piss off." And the Balrog's just right, and the bridge cracks underneath Gandalf, underneath the Balrog, sorry. And Gandalf, it collapses into the abyss where it will go down to the bowels of the earth. And as Gandalf turns, unfortunately, the Balrog rolls a nat 20 on its roll to hit. And the thongs of the whip slap around Gandalf's knees. And his last words to Frodo are, "Fly, you fools," before he gets pulled into the abyss. And you see that everyone is really fucking upset as Gandalf, James Gandolfini, exits the film, which is
I really
sad.
wasn't upset, if I'm honest.
Yeah?
Nah. I just thought, like, he's just so cocky.
Hmm.
I don't like his character whatsoever. I was just like, yeah, like, you thought you were safe. You know, he didn't even give a chance for it to, like, you know how a lot of films, they, like, listen for the splash. He didn't even do that before he turned around and was like, look, beat it. And that's his downfall.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, it'd have been waiting a long fucking time. Because it's deep, so...
No splash.
No, it's literally like... I honestly, I might be pulling this out my ass, but I think in the book it's described like Gandalf and the Balrog fall for like a day and a night. It's that long. Like, it's a really fucking long way down. Because that... so that bridge there, the bridge over Khazad-dûm, is built with the intention that any attacking army would have to come across in single file, meaning making it an easily defensible position. Meaning that you know, like that's exactly what it's for, so that the dwarves would be on the side where the Balrog is coming from, and anybody who was attacking from that side would have to come over one at a time.
As well, my query with the next part is they just kind of come running out.
Yeah.
Into the open space.
Yeah.
Why is there no door on that side?
Well, we just didn't see him pass through a door.
Okay.
Yeah, there will have been a door, but like it's like that Mitchell and Webb show. It's like, in this film, why don't we see anyone go to the toilet?
Exactly. That's another point.
Yeah. Peter Jackson didn't have enough time to show them going to the toilet. So the gang then make for Lothlorien, where it's the protection of Galadriel. And I love this bit where Gimli's giving him biggins. Do you know, where he's walking in the forest and he's like, "I've got the eyes of the eyes of an owl and the ears of a fox or something."
And you get caught.
And then Haldir, he's just like,
you could hear you breathing.
Yeah, it's like the dwarf breathed so loud we could have shot him in the dark. But yeah, like they were grieving on Moria, but Aragorn was like, by nightfall it's going to be crawling with orcs, we need to go. Gimli and Haldir don't get off to a great start. So the elves don't want the fellowship there. They know that Frodo brings great evil with them. And until Galadriel and Celeborn, who's Galadriel's husband, step in, not Celeborn, step in, they're basically going to be told to leave. But there is a fantastic exchange between Gimli and Haldir, where, do you know Haldir's the blonde elf?
Yeah.
With the comes down his face, like he's got the bangs or whatever they are.
Yeah.
He says we've not had dealings with the dwarfs since the elder days. And Gimli then says in Dwarvish, "Ishkakfa Eidor Gnul," which I was curious, because obviously I'm not a great language student. That was our dog snorting, not me. So I was curious as to what this phrase meant, so I went and I researched it. And it's part of Neo-Dwarvish. And it essentially means, "I shit on you who doesn't have a beard." So, in Dwarvish culture, it is, if you don't have a beard, you're either a kid, or you don't have, like, the knackers to grow one. Like, so, like, we need to accept, right, about Dwarven culture, men and women look the same. Men and women have beards, both have beards, right? And it's actually quite a personal thing to know a dwarf's gender. It's like, I'm a crafter for, like, I might be a smith first and foremost. Like, it doesn't matter if I'm a man or a woman, kind of thing. So, dwarvish men and dwarvish women are pretty much indistinguishable. And they all have, like, beards and what have you. So he's basically saying, like, I shit on someone who can't grow a beard. And so dwarves are always perplexed by elves. That, like, thinking that you're that old and you can't grow a beard. Like, what the fuck's wrong with you? Interestingly enough, the only elf to have known to have had a beard... Oh, shit, what's he called? Círdan, the shipwright. He's one of the oldest elves in existence. And he's got a beard. So I don't think dwarves would have a problem with him. But, I just thought it'd be interesting to... It's never referenced in the film. Aragorn just kind of, like, slaps Gimli on the chest and be like, "That wasn't so polite." And I thought it was going to be some, like, light-hearted ribbon. No, it's basically saying, like, I pour shit on you because you can't grow a beard, like, which is amazing. Now, it's not covered in the films, again, but they're in Lothlorien for about a month. I know, right? You're pulling a face that people can't see. But, yeah, they're in Lothlorien for a month. Like, it's described in the books that, like, they come out of Lothlorien and they're like, what the fuck? It was like a new moon when we went in. It's a new moon again. Like, what the hell?
They feel refreshed.
They do, and that's the point. Like, Lothlorien is... so, you know, Galadriel has a ring of power, right? It's called Nenya, which is the ring of adamant. And that allows her...
Adamant.
Adamant? Yeah. Not
Adamant.
Not adamant, as in adamantium. Like adamantine.
Right, okay.
Not fucking stand and deliver. Like, she has a ring of adamant called Nenya, which allows her to preserve... It's the power of preservation. So Elrond's ring allows him to heal, and Nenya allows Galadriel to preserve, whereas Gandalf's ring of fire allows him to inspire. That's what his ring of power does. It allows him to inspire people. And that's why Círdan gave it to him, because he was like, you need it more than me, bro. So yeah, Galadriel meets with everyone. Everyone gets a personalised message. Boromir, obviously, is really affected by his, because Frodo is then told that someone's going to try and take the ring, and you know who I speak of. And we know she means Boromir, who's starting to get tempted by the ring. He's done dirty, if I'm honest. He is. He's an absolute hero.
Oh, but he's gorgeous.
He is. Oh, he's gorgeous. He's done dirty. He is. But, yeah, it's so bad. But Frodo goes to see Galadriel when she walks past, and she shows him her, like, magic mirror, where he sees, essentially, what is in the books as the scouring of the Shire. That's where the Saruman takes over, and he calls himself Sharky in the books. This is right at the end of the trilogy, but we have to do a little out of timeline storytelling here to make it make sense. But basically, seeing the Shire and the hobbits turn from idyllic people who were just left alone into essentially slaves to industry, because she says it shows things that were, things that are, and things that have not yet come to pass. Frodo then offers Galadriel the ring, and this is one of the things I had the hardest trouble making notes about, because all this happens in 5 or 6 seconds, and you remember me trying to explain it to you the other night. Like,
yeah,
Galadriel is offered the ring, and she says, in place of a Dark Lord, you would have a queen as beautiful and terrible as dawn. Blah blah blah. She has that like crazy light around her and what have you. But then ultimately she rejects the temptation, because Frodo has given her freely the ring, and she is tempted by it sorely, because she's thinking, I could become so powerful and do everything I wanted to do. But ultimately she rejects it, and then she says, I have passed the test. I can diminish and go into the West, right? That is 6,000 years or so of exile ended for Galadriel there. She left Valinor when her uncle Feanor left it, and she followed him up until the point where, because they were hunting for the Silmarils, she wanted to fight against Morgoth. She left Valinor, and they had a chance to turn back, and they all said no, and they were exiled for it. And then shortly after that, Feanor killed the elves who build ships. It was called the Kinslaying. And Galadriel at that point turned her back on Feanor, but it was too late to go back to Valinor. So she came to Middle-earth on her own and became a wise leader that she is now. And she's tried to do her best. So the Valar have looked at her and said she's resisted the ultimate temptation, and she's struggled against Sauron for so many years now. You can come home. So that's kind of a happy ending for her. Like, it's, to be honest, like, she should be her own episode, Galadriel, because her history is so rich. And she's one of the oldest beings. She's older than most of the fucking trees, like, in Middle-earth. Like, it's crazy. We fast forward, and they're leaving, and they get their gifts, which is great, because they all get the cloaks, which are magical in their own right. Haldir says we don't... Oh, is it Celeborn?
Like Kevlar or something.
Kind of, yeah. He's like, well, we don't normally garb people in like others in elven stuff. And so their cloaks shield them from unfriendly eyes, essentially. You'll see a bit more in another film, in The Return of the King, about that. Merry and Pippin get a couple of daggers, which is pretty cool. Sam gets some rope, elvish rope.
Have you got any other of those?
You got any of those daggers? In the books, Sam also gets some other gifts. He gets some salt, and he gets some... Wait, does he get salt? I'm pretty sure he gets salt. But he also gets some soil, which is from Galadriel's, from Lothlorien. and that helps with the scouring of the Shire. That helps put the Shire back together.
Oh, that's cool.
It's beautiful. Oh, fucking hell, I nearly forgot the most important thing. Gimli gets 3 locks of hair from Galadriel, and
When he only asks for one.
he asks for 1. Now, the significance of that is Fëanor, the greatest craftsman to have ever lived, when he was creating the Silmarils, captured the light of the trees, but he asked Galadriel 3 times for a single strand of her hair so that he could create something beautiful with them. And 3 times she rejected him. She said, no, you can't have it. And Galadriel recognises the friendship brewing between Legolas and Gimli, and she gives him the 3 hairs because he was so respectful asking for it, whereas Fëanor wasn't that respectful. Legolas understands implicitly like just how great of a gift he's been given, and this really is the first like massively concrete steps you see of the friendships renewing between elves and dwarves, and it is kind of like a beautiful thing, like people who've been enemies for thousands of years starting to put aside their differences, and it really is a beautiful thing. Legolas gets a fucking sick bow, and Aragorn gets a pretty cool knife, which he comes to use in a little bit. So they set off down the River Anduin to the Falls of Rauros, and on the way there, we transition into a pretty fucking sick Uruk-hai scene. So do you remember when they were being dug out of the mud?
Yeah.
Like, what were your thoughts on that?
Sorry, I'm just admiring the...
Yeah, we've got our Labrador like laying across Becca and snoring and pushing himself as close as he can. But so Uruk-hai are a mix between men and orcs.
Yeah.
And they see them get dug out the ground.
So I thought that it reminded me of Predator.
Oh yeah, I remember you saying, yeah.
And the person who did the sick makeup effects did a great job, because obviously the beast is born out of earth and fire, and his face looks like it's been torched.
Oh, you're talking about Lurtz, the leader Uruk-hai?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's fucking cool, isn't he? They all got like the white hand of Saruman just like pumped on him.
Yeah.
What I find is it's pretty cool. So like Uruk-hai are stronger, faster, and can move in sunlight, unlike orcs, right? But they're a mix between the wild mountain men and orcs. So I'm just wondering what that looked like, because there had to be some prolonged fucking for that to happen. Like, how else would you do it? Like, so just like magic stem cell baby shit. Like, so did orc fuck women, or did men fuck orc? Like,
that never even crossed my mind.
Well, how else do you get crosses between things?
I just thought it was more of a case of like, in the Matrix, like, we're just eggs almost.
Right, so because they got
Not
brought
we
out
are.
of the mud. Right, okay, yeah.
I'm putting myself in the shoes of this being, but I just kind of thought that there was no sexual thing going on.
Mm.
So
Well,
they were just kind of grown.
It does say, like,
in
in the book somewhere, it does say that they breed like men.
Right, okay.
So it is that's kind of obviously, like, Tolkien wasn't writing like smut,
but that's something that you clearly wouldn't know just watching the film.
No, you wouldn't. No, you like, I literally dug out the ground, but like in the back of my mind, I'm just wondering how it works. But hey ho, yeah. So we see that Saruman mentioned. This is the point where Saruman mentions that the elves were twisted into orcs by Morgoth. And he used to kidnap the first elves to twist and torture them. And in fact, the first time the elves met one of the Valar, they were scared because they thought it was Morgoth again. Like, one of the other Valar, sorry. They thought it was Morgoth again coming to, like, because he used to kidnap. Because when elves first awoke, there was only like 300 of them or something. Like, the first elves to ever wake up, sorry. And they used to come and, like, it used to be a horror story of, like, you'd get too far away from the camplight and someone would come and snatch you. And he'd twist them and torture them into orcs. All the Uruk-hai get the white hand. And Lurtz is only in the films, but he's the leader of the Uruk-hai. And he's one who's like, find the halfling. But then we switch back to them leaving Lothlorien, and it's my favourite personal scene in this whole movie, I think, where Merry and Pippin are sat in the boat, and Legolas comes and he's like, lembas bread, and he takes a tiny bite and he's like, one bite is enough to sustain a man for a full day, and they're just nodding and smiling. And then when he leaves, Pippin goes up to him and says, like, "How many did you have?" And then Merry's like, 4. This is fucking great. So yeah, they set off in their ships, and then they passed. Well, when they passed the big 2 statues, like what were you thinking there? Were you impressed at all, or
I mean, they looked pretty grand, but
just you've seen 2 statues on a river before? You've seen them all.
yeah, just I didn't. You don't know the law really as a person that's not read the book, so
Yeah, no, fair dues.
that's kind of apart from when
Aragorn,
Gorn,
yeah,
kind of gives you a brief sort of tidbit of information about it, but yeah, they just look like you are entering into our space.
yeah. Well, yeah, you are coming into Gondor. So what that is, the Argonath it's a seal door. It's 2
So
statues.
this is the gateway.
Yeah, do you know where they've got the hands out?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is, where is it? That is the Argonath. It's a Isildur and an Arion, 2 brothers, and that marks the entrance to Northern Gondor. So Isildur and an Arion, they kind of ruled Gondor and Arnor together for a while. So you won't know for now, but the capital of Gondor is called Minas Tirith. It used to be Osgiliath, and Minas Tirith and Osgiliath and Minas Ithil used to be 3 cities, and Osgiliath used to be the capital, but it's not now. So again, it's the world in decline kind of thing.
This is too much information.
Yeah. But basically, they're in Gondor now, right?
Yeah.
And they carry on, and eventually they make camp, and they notice after a while that Frodo's gone, and unfortunately, so is Boromir. There's an exchange between Frodo and Boromir, where Boromir succumbs to the
He has his weak moment.
He does, yeah, and he tries to take the ring. All I've got in my notes here just say the poor fucking guy. The films don't do him justice, because all Boromir wants is to protect Gondor. That's all he wants. That's all he wants to do is just protect Gondor, and the ring uses that to the point where he try and take it by force. Unfortunately for Boromir, or fortunately, he fails. Frodo slips on the ring and disappears. As soon as he does, Boromir pretty much realises what he's done, and you see straight away in the films.
Frodo!
Yeah.
Frodo!
And he is so remorseful straight away. You can see he's beside himself, because Boromir is a noble guy. Like, he really is. And you'll meet his brother Faramir in a bit, and he's just as good. The dad's a bit of a dick, I'm not going to lie. Denethor is a bit of a pleb. But again, it's just kind of like sympathetic characters have been corrupted. And that's what Tolkien, he did it really well. But Frodo runs to the top of Amon Hen, and there are 3 hilltops or mountaintops. And they form a triangle around the Falls of Rauros, and this is just a geography lesson. There's Amon Hen, where Frodo is, on the west shore. There's Amon Law on the east shore, and there's Tol Brandir, which is an unassailable island on the south end that splits the falls in 2. And at the top of Amon Hen, where Frodo is called the Seeing Seat, where the kings of Gondor used to, sit and see things. And that's where Frodo ends up himself. And he puts, as he's got the ring on and he stands on the Seeing Seat, he sees the Eye of Sauron, which also sees him, and he sees things far away. And that's the bit where he falls off. Do you know where he falls off that statue thing?
Pulls the ring off as he's fallen.
And Aragorn's there. And Aragorn's like, "Oh, Frodo." And Frodo's naturally, just after his experience with Boromir, he's a bit sus. And he's like, "Get away from me," kind of thing. And it's at that point, so I know you got a bit confused with it, but I don't know whether it's because of how much I've read these things that I see it straight away. But Aragorn pretty much straight away realises that Frodo is going to go. And Aragorn says, "I swore to protect you." Frodo says, "Well, can you protect me from yourself?" And then Aragorn does the most Aragorn thing possible, where he gently closes Frodo's hand back over the ring and says, "I would have gone with you till the end." So he realises that Frodo needs to go, because if the Fellowship has failed, then Frodo can't rely on anybody. And Aragorn also notices that Sting is glowing blue, meaning orcs or Uruk-hai are close. And he tells Frodo to go as he draws his sword. And out of fucking nowhere, Gimli and Legolas just rock up and start slashing shit. And again, from the Lord of the Rings, from the Two Towers video game, this bit is class because it's just hacking and slashing the whole way. Frodo runs down the hill where he bumps into Merry and Pippin, who tell him, like, Frodo, come here. And again, Pippin, the div, doesn't realise until Merry says he's leaving. Another thing I wanted to mention is that Aragorn, do you know the shot where he closes his hand over Frodo's?
Mm-hmm.
He's wearing a ring. And did you get a good look at that ring?
No.
It is two snakes, like, entwined. That's called the Ring of Barahir. And that's the beautiful thing about these films and these books, is that everything's got a history. The ring has got a history. This ring has got a history. Because there was an elven lord called Finrod who owned it in the first age of Middle-earth. He owned the ring. And during a big war, I think it was the Dagor Bragalak, or like the Unexpected War, something like that, a human called Barahir saved this elf's life. And in gratitude, the elf, Finrod, he gave the ring to Barahir and said, let it be a symbol of friendship between our two houses. And later down the line, it was used as like a proof of who you were. It passed to Beren. It was Huron. I think it passed to like Huron and Beren. And like it basically has a very long history. And it is just another small symbol, a small point at this point in time. But it's just one of those other things that points out that how Aragorn is a lost heir of Numenor. It's just like another symbol of like, I belong on the throne, because he's got all the gear, he's got all the idea. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's just one of those things. But Frodo makes it down to the shoreline because Merry and Pippin find their courage again.
Act like tanks to pull the enemy.
Exactly, they pull all the aggro. You're right, yeah. You're fucking right, yeah. I've never thought about it like that, but you're so right. Merry and Pippin use their they use their shouts to antagonise the enemy. And they run off, allowing Frodo to get down to the beach, where he sets off in his wee little boat. And then Sam gives his best performance ever of Mr. Frodo! Mr. Frodo! He goes, no, Sam, I'm going alone. He goes, of course you are. And I'm coming with you. And he wades out into the water. And it takes so much courage, because hobbits fucking hate water. They're like cats. They hate water so much. But Sam, nary a thought for his own like safety, just goes out into the water.
Little loyal Labrador.
He is. He's beautiful, man. He's just about to drown when Frodo drags him into the boat. They make it to the eastern shore, and they begin their journey towards the Emyn Wheel, which
always makes me think when you've said that word, the two words Emyn Wheel, it always makes me think of Emmental. And they're like cheese whale.
Unfortunately,
but I don't know whether that's because I'm always hungry.
It's a labyrinth of mountains.
Oh.
Unfortunately, and razor sharp rocks and Gollum. But they exit the story. This is the parting of the ways now. We're seeing where everyone goes, because Boromir defends Merry and Pippin as long as he can, and he blows the horn of Gondor, which is it's called the Great Horn. And it's said in legend that if this horn is ever blown within the confines of Gondor, the realm of Gondor, the call would not go unheeded. And the call of the horn is so loud here that it's actually heard in Minas Tirith, in the capital of Gondor. It's actually based on, I think, on the legend of King Arthur, perhaps, or another British legend. But basically, in both cases, the help arrived. Oh, no, sorry, a paladin of Charlemagne. There's a story of a paladin of Charlemagne who blows a horn, but the help arrives too late. And in this case, poor Boromir dies. Oh, well, he's struck down by Lurtz, or by the Uruk-hai, and Merry and Pippin are carried away before Aragorn comes in and has an amazing fight scene before Lurtz is dispatched. And Boromir has the immortal line of, I would have followed you, my brother, my captain, my king, which you know from watching it with me that I absolutely adore.
Yeah, I can see you tearing up.
Yeah. and Boromir dies. Now they send his body down Rauros, down the falls, where it will eventually make its way back into Minas Tirith along with the horn. And as tribute, Aragorn takes his van braces, do you know, like his forearm guards, where Legolas is ready to be like, come on, quick, they're making the Eastern Shore when you see Sam and Frodo go in. But Aragorn decides, no, we're going to go after Merry and Pippin. And that is that is the end of the film. Like,
where will they end up?
Well, yeah, it's the parting of the ways.
Where will the journeys take them?
Yeah, what were your thoughts overall, like, on this?
Part 2 definitely better than part 1.
In terms of events.
In terms of events, obviously in part 1, it's not as serious. I like the party scenes.
Yeah.
It makes me want to be a hobbit.
Oh yeah.
But obviously part 2 have the death of Gandalf. Whoop whoop. Because I think he was just. I mean, sometimes he was just proper dead weight, really.
Oh yeah. Obviously.
But yeah, I think
So,
Boromir obviously very. I mean, I think if I'd read the books, it would be devastating because I mean, such a great character.
oh, there's so much. Like, Boromir is only there because of a dream he had. You know, like he gets to the council because of a dream that Faramir has, and then it's but yeah. So we're now facing down the second part of the trilogy, the second film in the trilogy. What are your thoughts about going into that?
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Still don't. I mean, at least I know the main characters' names now.
Yeah, that's true.
But obviously, all the ones that you've mentioned in places, they all kind of meld into one.
Yeah.
In my brain.
So should we save the episodes about like the first age characters and stuff like that until we've covered the main trilogy?
Probably.
Yeah. Well, that's fine. So have you learned much in the last 2 weeks?
Lots. Yeah. I feel like I've had a good introduction.
It's good. It's good. I hope that the next time we watch Fellowship of the Ring together, that you'll have a bit like of a richer understanding.
I'll nerd out. I'll be giving you the facts.
Well, the good news is, so I've had eight cans of lager maybe while we've been while we've been doing this. So I'm drunk enough to be a bit more eloquent than usual, but I'm not as drunk as I was last week, where I was absolutely wrecked by the end of it. So I'm going to say good night from me, Chris,
and good night from me too.
And
Apollo.
And Apollo, our dog. And we'll pick up next week where we'll look at the two towers, not the Twin Towers, as I've told people I enjoy watching. And yeah, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the flip side.